the crown jewel of Asia. Myanmar. More familiar as Burma. Sharing borders between 5 countries, Thailand, Laos, Bangladesh, and countries which were the birthplaces of civilizations, China, and India.
The uniqueness of this country can be seen in many traces. Here, where the local people call
the Chin Chon Palace,
British colonial, meets more of the East.
the palace records its own history. Constructed by a Chinese rice trader in the early 1900s, during the British occupation. Then, sold to the Japanese while they were ruling. And came back to Burma after they left. Diversity is not only in history. Living in Myanmar is always colorful. Chinatown. Indian town. Living under colonial background. People of various ethnic origins gather here to live and multiply their lives. People with each of their lifestyles. And of course, with their faith. Life with faith lies here in its very basic form. In this diverse country, the Rohingyas does not exist. Their history is a history of denial. Historians say that their tribe name, Rohingya, only appear in documents from the 1950s. So that they are not qualified as original national race of this country, which, according to the law, must be ethnic groups living before 1823. They are no written proof of the tribe name, Rohingya. Since 1982 and before, gradually and systematically they have been stripped of their existence. They are denied access to public healthcare, primary education, public jobs. Isolated forever, without the basic human rights. Freedom of movement, freedom of expression, freedom of demonstration. Denied to be born, live, marry, and bear a child. When generosity is inevitable, diversity becomes divinity. From 25th of August to the 5th of September, 32 official breaking news were issued from the Myanmar government. All the official announcements to the people, from the authorities, were included in these releases. And this was all, of the citizens' knowledge, what actually happened in the incident. It was not a persecution, no discrimination, no genocide. The first attack started, early at night, on the 25th of August 2017, around 1 a.m. A simultaneous multiple attacks by extremist terrorists. 30 or more attacks concentrated within the northern state of Rakhine. Attacks mostly on police outposts and police stations. All a surprise attack, causing casualties of 8 to 9 officers. The Myanmar military, known as Tatmadaw, responded immediately to these local attacks. Though it continued for 8 hours, the police nor the Tatmadaw couldn't prevent the crime, and all attacks executed in success. Purpose of the attack unclear. But many breaking news clarifies that it was carried out in synchronization with the final report by Dr. Kofi Annan. The Rakhine Report. Just on the same day, the Myanmar parliament declared ALSA, Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, as a terrorist organization, and people helping him regarded as terrorist supporters. Same day, Kofi Annan, still in Myanmar, showed strong condemnation, urged security forces to exercise restraint, and innocent civilians not to be harmed. 3 days later, Breaking News 13 introduces statements by the United Nations, U.S. Department of State, India, China, Britain, Australia, Japan, Canada and many others. The international community had to respond to uncertain intels from the Myanmar government, but what seemed to be happening was grave enough for their urgent response. And their statements were all alike, as though they were taught to say so. From the first stage of the so-called terrorists, their actions were very strange. They not only attacked the police stations, but also set fire to Rohingya villages. The news says, for intentions, for flaming the violence to totally destroy the town, or fabricating a story, as it was carried out by security personnels, or to blow up homemade mines, when security personnel and local people come to put out the fire, or to cause misunderstandings between the security forces and the villages before fleeing. All paradoxical reasons. The information committees, breaking newses, are written superficially, far from journalism, nor the true facts. Just by looking into the very first attacks by the so-called terrorists, a glimpse of fact appears. The world media announced that ALSA initially attacked 30 police posts and started terrorizing Myanmar. Breaking News 2 shows in detail each of the attacking time, place, and damage. The list is in order of the region numbers, and mostly of the Maungdaw area, the northern tip of the state of Rakhine. On the next day of this Breaking News 2, the State Councillor Office presented a map of the 30 places. But by plotting the places of the list, mismatching places appears. The Rohingya incident of 2017 was investigated several times by independent committees of international members. The last Independent Commission of Inquiry issued its report on 20 January 2020. The full 461-page of this report is not published to the public, but among the information that was released is a map of the first 30 places, but of new locations. And when plotting all these three official informations to the original map, the total counts up to 52. 52 simultaneous attacks succeeded on a single day, without notice by the Great Tatmadaw's intelligence department. Or was the Tatmadaw aware of the attack, but sacrificed all the local police? In these breaking newses, not a single comment of Rohingyas being harmed, although they were mainly involved. Some about Hindus. Words mentioning Bengalis, an insult mainly used for illegal Bangladesh immigrants, only appears in very few places, but puts a large emphasis on conducts of Islamic extremist terrorists. A background story, very recognizable in 2017, when ISIS was expanding its activities internationally. Day awakens in Yangon by the footsteps of the monks. Dutanga, the begging of food as a Buddhism practice. Buddhism is so natural and so basic in people's life here, woven inside their lives. Spending the life of Buddha, what life in universe is and is not. Most Buddhist children in Myanmar exit from their homes and enter the temples as adults, spend life as Buddha himself, practice the way to ultimate enlightenment. These monks eat in silence, practicing ingestion as the unavoidable fate of living creatures. They are overcoming the illusion to be liberalized from appetite, lust, to eat.
The arrival of the Buddhism in Myanmar was since the Buddha's lifetime. A few days after the Buddha had attained supreme enlightenment, the two merchant brothers from the Myanmar, they went to the India for trading. At the time, they request the Buddha to give the sacred hair to bring in Myanmar to pay respect for Myanmar people. The King Okalapa bid the Shuddhagong Pagoda, enshrining the sacred release, the hair of the Buddha. The arrival of Buddhism in Burma was since started the Buddha's lifetime.
Buddhism flourished in, now India, from 2,500 years ago. Buddha was born here, enlightened here, and preached here. Buddha, so close, so vividly, lives in people's lives. 2.5 millennia. Still, now. Since its decline in the homelands. For the Burmese Buddhists, they feel the fate responsible to preserve Buddhism's origin, positioned in its West End. Responsibility to protect the West Gate.
In our country, the Buddhism and Burmese people cannot be separated. Our Myanmar culture also based on the Buddhism. Our Burmese people are very simple, very honest, due to the Buddha's teachings. Every Buddhist, they observe at least 5 precepts. 5 precepts. The first precept, they must abstain from killing any living beings. And then they must abstain from stealing others' properties. This is the second training precept. And then the third one, we Burmese people, they try to abstain from sexual misconduct. This is the third training precept. The fourth one, to abstain from the telling lies, abusive speech, the useless speech, vain talk. And then the last training precept, abstaining from drinking alcohol, using intoxicating drinks and drugs. We must abstain from any kind of intoxicating drinks and drugs.
5th of September, the last breaking news. Just 10 days. End of Rakhine incident. Instead, it was the social media bursting up in flames. With only uncertain news, what actually was happening was all in people's nerves and fueled the wildfire. It was, as always, but especially here, in a pure form. Myanmar's internet just sprouted in 2012 after media censorship reduction in 2011. And the first giant that jumped in and dominated the market was Facebook. In Myanmar, internet means Facebook. And Facebook is the internet. That society networks under the name of democracy. The power of democracy. The savage authority. Burmese was the only local language adopted in the system, though hundreds of languages are spoken within this nation. Not to mention Rohingya. The Rohingyas too called out signs of despair, but was, and had always been, ignored. For reasons that Rohingyas were basically prohibited using cell phones. Moreover, distanced from basic education, most being left illiterate, and the desperate cry stigmatized as fabricated, fake. Thus, without reaching social, sank in Burmese flood. On the 20th of September 2017, the Vice President of Myanmar addresses a statement at the UN Security Council, declaring peace and harmony prevails, and hope for future restoration. I am happy to inform you that the situation has improved. No armed clashes have been reported since the 5th of September. On the 25th of August 2017, the Kofi Annan Commission released its final report. Within hours of the release of the report, a series of coordinated attacks were carried out on 30 police outposts. Those who have had to abandon their hearth and home are many, not just Muslim and Rakhine, but also small minority groups such as Daring Net, Murov, Thet, Muramagi and Hindus. Most of the world has been oblivious of their existence and plight. Although we have made real progress, we know that the road ahead is long and convoluted. Our democratic transition is fragile. At this important juncture in our nation's history, we only ask that the international community continues to support our efforts to achieve peace, prosperity and democracy. Case closed.